Most people watching this video would mentally collapse within a few days inside the White Room. Not because they're weak, not because they're stupid, but because the White Room was never designed to educate people. It was designed to erase them. And the terrifying part is, Ayanokoji didn't just survive it. He adapted to it so perfectly that he stopped behaving like a normal human being altogether. When most people watch Classroom of the Elite, they think the White Room is just another exaggerated anime concept, a secret facility that creates geniuses. But the more I looked into it, the more disturbing it became, because almost every psychological principle behind the White Room actually exists in real life. Sensory deprivation, identity breakdown, emotional suppression, cognitive overload. None of this is fantasy. The White Room feels horrifying because parts of it are real. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why the final lesson of the White Room is something no real human being should ever learn. The first thing most people misunderstand about the White Room is that it doesn't begin with intelligence training. It begins with isolation, silence, emptiness. Imagine being 4 years old and waking up in a room with no warmth, no emotional connection, no colorful distractions, nothing comforting, nothing personal, no toys, no affection, no sense of individuality, just information, endless information. Most children develop emotionally because someone smiles at them, someone comforts them, someone tells them they matter. In the White Room, that never happens. You are not raised like a child. You are processed like an experiment. And this is where things become terrifyingly realistic. Real psychological studies on sensory deprivation show that when the brain is isolated from stimulation for long enough, it starts creating its own reality. People hallucinate, they panic, they emotionally shut down. Human beings are not built to exist in empty environments. Our brains need emotional interaction almost as much as food, but the White Room replaces all human warmth with performance. Instead of bedtime stories, imagine tactical theory. Instead of emotional bonding, imagine memorization drills. Instead of affection, imagine evaluation. Every single day. Now think about how insane that is for a moment. At an age where most children are learning how to trust people, Ayanokoji was learning how to suppress emotional dependency itself. And honestly, this is probably the point where most children would already break. Not physically, psychologically. There's a real condition called analytic depression. It happens when children grow up without emotional attachment or maternal comfort. They stop responding emotionally, they become detached from the world around them. In severe cases, they completely shut down psychologically. Now imagine that process being intentional. That's the White Room. The goal wasn't just to create intelligence. It was to remove anything considered inefficient, and emotions were treated like inefficiencies. That's why Ayanokoji doesn't react like a normal person. It's not because he's naturally cold. It's because his environment punished emotional behavior from the beginning. And the scariest part? This is only phase 1. Because eventually the White Room stops trying to erase your emotions and starts trying to destroy your sense of self entirely. By the age of 8, White Room students are processing information at levels that would overwhelm most adults. But here's the detail most viewers miss when they talk about Ayanokoji's intelligence. The training wasn't just difficult, it was unpredictable on purpose. Imagine waking up every single day, already knowing you're going to fail at something. Not maybe, definitely. A test you can't solve, a task you can't complete, a physical limit you can't overcome, over and over and over again. Most people think intelligence grows through success, but psychologically, humans are fragile when failure becomes constant. There's a concept in psychology called learned helplessness. When subjects are repeatedly placed into situations where effort changes nothing, eventually they stop trying entirely. They mentally collapse. That's exactly what the White Room was engineered to do. Break people until only the most adaptable mind remains. And this is where most students failed. Some developed inferiority complexes. Others became obsessed with proving themselves. Some became emotionally unstable. Even gifted students eventually reached psychological exhaustion because human beings naturally need validation. We need some proof that our effort means something. But Ayanokoji responded differently, and this is the exact moment he becomes terrifying. He stopped caring about failure emotionally. Think about that carefully. Most people fail and think, I'm not good enough. Ayanokoji failed and thought, what is the optimal adjustment? No frustration, no emotional resistance, no ego. Just adaptation. That sounds impressive at first, until you realize what had to disappear for someone to think like that. Because normal humans protect their pride. Ayanokoji slowly stopped protecting his humanity itself. And this is probably where some viewers start realizing why the White Room feels so disturbing. It's not just because it creates geniuses. It's because it removes the psychological traits that make someone human in the first place. But somehow, even that wasn't the final stage. Because the final lesson of the White Room was far worse than pain, isolation, or failure. It was the destruction of identity, the complete death of the word I. In the White Room, you are not treated as a person with dreams, emotions, fears, or individuality. You are treated as a specimen, a result, a product. And this part actually connects to real psychological conditioning methods used throughout history. One of the most effective ways to increase obedience or efficiency is dehumanization. Once people stop seeing themselves as individuals, they become easier to control, easier to shape, easier to weaponize. The White Room perfected this idea. That's why Ayanokoji views people differently from everyone else in the series. Most geniuses still have emotional weaknesses: pride, anger, jealousy, fear. They want recognition. They want connection. They want to prove they matter. Ayanokoji doesn't. And that's why nobody around him can truly understand him. To him, people become variables, outcomes, possibilities, pieces moving across a board. And honestly, one of the coldest moments in Classroom of the Elite isn't even a dramatic scene. It's the realization that Ayanokoji can perfectly imitate human behavior without emotionally experiencing it the same way everyone else does. That's horrifying. Because the White Room didn't just teach intelligence, it taught emotional simulation. And the more you think about that idea, the darker this entire story becomes. Could a real human being survive something like this? Realistically, probably not. The human brain is fundamentally social. There's an actual theory in psychology called the social brain hypothesis, and it suggests that human intelligence itself evolved because of social interaction, emotional bonding, empathy, and relationships. In other words, the things the White Room removes are the exact same things that normally create healthy human development. So if someone truly survived a system like this, they wouldn't come out as a perfect genius. They would come out emotionally distorted. And suddenly, Ayanokoji becomes less inspirational and more tragic. Because underneath all the intelligence, all the manipulation, all the calmness, there's still one terrifying question hanging over his character. If someone is forced to suppress every human emotion in order to survive, what's actually left of them afterward? And honestly, that's why I think the White Room resonates with so many people. Not because we want to become emotionless masterminds, but because modern life already rewards parts of that mentality. People suppress emotions to appear strong. People destroy themselves chasing perfection. Students burn out trying to become valuable. People force themselves to stay productive even when they're mentally exhausted. The White Room feels fictional, until you realize how many people already live smaller versions of it every single day. That's what makes Ayanokoji such an interesting character. He represents the fantasy of becoming untouchable, but he also represents the cost of abandoning your humanity to achieve perfection. So now I want to ask you something. What part of yourself have you suppressed just to survive your own environment? And if becoming stronger meant losing the ability to genuinely connect with people, would the power even be worth it? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I genuinely want to read what people think about this topic. Some of the best ideas for these videos actually come from your comments, and after reading the discussions on the last White Room video, I realized something really important. Most people aren't scared of failing. They're scared of becoming emotionally numb while trying to succeed. And honestly, that might be the real horror of the White Room.